year does not start for another week from now, so moves cannot officially be made. But the Cowboys have still yet to even talk about a notable move. Shady McCoy, the Dallas Cowboys, I'm wondering, does that Deebo Samuel addition to the Commanders put more pressure on them?
I think so. I mean, if you think about this, so the Cowboys, they didn't make no moves last year, really. And they get to this, they had a bad season, right? And they want to blame it on the quarterback getting hurt. But before the quarterback got hurt, they were not having a great season.
Correct.
Okay, let's go to this season. So we see the Commanders making some moves. You see where the Commanders went to last year. They went to the NFC Championship game with a rookie quarterback. So you know what's going to get better.
Yeah.
They're going to ask for defensive pieces, I'm sure. I'm hearing Myles Garrett. He's in the running to get on the defense, right? But right now, as it stands, the Cowboys haven't made no moves.
Yeah.
No moves as in signing your best defensive player on the team, signing your best player in Michael Parsons. You don't get him. So now, if we look at it today, now you're the third best team in the division. Used to be number one. Used to be a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Now you're third. Okay. Yo, quarterback. I think this league is driven by quarterbacks.
Yeah.
We all agree with that?
Yes.
Well, now you're the third best quarterback in the division. Ooh. I mean, am I tripping here?
No, sir.
Am I tripping here?
Maybe a little bit.
Maybe. I don't know. One guy went to the Super Bowl. The other guy, I mean, he probably is the most talented guy in the division. So as I look at this thing, everybody's getting better around you, right? And you not.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about the NFC. I'm talking about the NFC East.
They're in your division.
So I don't know how y'all see it, but I see it as if a lot of pressure that you're not answering to.
I see it similarly for two reasons. When you talk about ball, first thing is, how do you match up to the teams in your division? And at this point in time, Cowboys, you match up worse versus the Commanders. Cowboys have defensive backs that are good at taking the ball away, but you don't have cornerbacks that like to tackle. Trayvon Diggs, notably, does not like to tackle. Deron Bland, when healthy, does not necessarily like to tackle. However, Deebo Samuel is the hardest receiver to tackle when he has the ball in his hand. Deebo and Jamar Chase, I would suggest. So from a micro perspective, Cowboys, you are worse than the Commanders because now the Commanders have a positional advantage over you. Deebo's hard to tackle, and your corners do not like to tackle. Furthermore, from a macro perspective, the Commanders have gotten better, and Cowboys, you still have not. The Commanders are making moves, and Cowboys, you still are not. Eagles were already better than the Cowboys. Commanders were already better than the Cowboys. And now the Commanders have added a number 2 playmaker on offense. Meanwhile, Cowboys, we've been searching for you all to get a number 2 playmaker on offense. Remember, that's the Cowboys' biggest need right now offensively is either a running back, a shirt-up replacement for Zach Martin, a number 2 playmaker on offense. Yet the Commanders had the same need, and they did something about it while you didn't. Commanders acquired Deebo Samuel for a 5th-round pick. A 5th-round pick. Cowboys, you have a 5th-round pick you could have given up. I understand there is money involved, like Micah Parsons tweeted about. You can figure it out. Howie Roseman, he always seems to find a way to do so. So I think it absolutely puts pressure on the Cowboys watching that.
I couldn't disagree more. And it's not anything to do with the Eagles or the Commanders, because I completely agree with you. The Cowboys are the 3rd best team in the division. But the Cowboys have always and will always move at their own speed. They don't care about outside pressure. Quite honestly, all the things you said they need, they're not addressing it. Last year in free agency, league-wide spending, free agency, because it's coming up in a week, less than a week. Okay, league-wide spending was $111 million. The Dallas Cowboys signed a long snapper and a backup linebacker, and they spent $19 million. And this just goes to the roster building thing. The Commanders are doing the absolute right thing. When you have a rookie quarterback, you build around him when you can, and you do not have to pay him a $60 million a year salary like Dak Prescott. And quite honestly, in this league today, it is very, very difficult for anyone at any team to build a team with 3 $30+ million players. When you just pay your star players, $60 million for Dak, $35 for CD, 38, maybe 40 for Micah, there's only so much to go around. And I understand the salary cap is rising, but that's how the Cowboys are. They don't trade for people very rarely. They don't build through free agency. They build through the draft. And what has it gotten them, Shady? Like you said yesterday, 35 or 36 years have gone by since they've been in a championship game. So quite honestly, Jerry Jones, I think, is a little outdated in his style. Will McClay, a little maybe outdated in his style. I like building through the draft. You can no longer have that luxury of building through the draft. Your team needs way more players than you can draft and be substantial starters for day one. Maybe it's time to change. Maybe it's time to go out and get those, I'm not talking about star players, but those players that are number 10 through number 40 on your roster who are every down players on special teams, on defense. Maybe they're not making $30 million a year. Maybe they're making $10 million a year. Go out and get those solid players. Howie Roseman, in your division, went out and probably signed the greatest signing of all time for the money in Zach Bond. $1.25 million, $1.5 million. Zach Bond got votes for Defensive Player of the Year. Where is that for the Dallas Cowboys? It's non-existent.
You know what? I thought, well, the answer is no, but I thought Shady was going to have my take. Because it don't put more pressure on the Dallas Cowboys. It puts more pressure on Dak Prescott.
Oh, okay.
And the main reason why I say that is because we watched Josh Allen this year with not really a good roster, at least coming into the season. And we've seen him raise the level of the team by the way he played, right? We seen it on the other side, right? We seen Sam Darnold play really well all year long, and when the games really mattered and you playing against two really good football teams,
He showed up.
you showed up and you played bad and your team lost. We seen Jared Goff play solid all year long and you showed up and played really, really bad. And then we seen Jaden Daniels in the biggest moments play flawless football and look like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and that is why his team was in the NFC Championship. Say whatever we want to say about Jalen Hurts. In the biggest games against the Rams and against Patty Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, he showed up and had two of his best games of his career, basically, and definitely of the season. Dak Prescott, you're arguably the third best quarterback in the division now. Usually you come into the season and you say, hey, Giants 2 wins, Commanders 2 wins. All right, we'll figure out some other wins in between. I'll get this team to 12 wins. You can't say that now. So now when you play Jaden Daniels, you have to elevate your game. When you play the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, you have to elevate your game. Who knows who the Giants is going to have at the quarterback spot? You are going to have to elevate your game. So to me, it puts more pressure on Dak Prescott because the Cowboys ain't going to be aggressive in free agency because they never been. That's just not what they do. So if this team is going to have any chance and to win some games, it's going to have to be because Dak Prescott in the biggest moments elevates his game. All the pressure, in my humble opinion, is on Dak Prescott. A bunch of good players is not coming into that building. You are going to have to raise your level of play, and it puts a whole lot more pressure on Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I just, how much more can Dak raise his level of play, though? Because we've seen him.
Uh-oh, I like this conversation now.
We've seen him finish second in MVP voting in the regular season. And at what point, though, do you move on? And be like, if you're not going to go out and surround your guys.
I think this is that year.
Because the Eagles have surrounded Jalen Hurts with a lot of great guys. The Commanders surrounded some good guys. Jaden has done that. At some point, you have to say, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the $60 million a year worth getting to the playoffs? Maybe. But you guys, and we're all saying they're the third team in the division. Right, so eventually I think that's a conversation for the Cowboys. What else is out there? Can we get the same amount of production from somebody not named Dak in the regular season, and maybe we find a Jaden Daniels?
But don't you believe no? Because we've had this conversation.
Yes, and I do, but that's the hard part of the whole situation is that in this NFL, it's very difficult to find a quarterback that even gets you to the playoffs. Now, I do agree it's on the quarterback once the playoffs start to get that monkey off his back and to break through. I just don't know with the team that's given to him right now if he can do that. Because quite honestly, and what Shady is, you are what you are. He's never done it.
I don't know if it's still that hard to find a quarterback who can get their team
I don't think it's that hard at all.
In this day and age, mind you, 7 teams make the playoffs. It's only 16 in the league. I think 44% of NFL teams make the playoffs. Correct me if I'm wrong off camera, 44%. So about 50 if you want to round that joint up. We've seen Daniel Jones make the playoffs.
Trevor Lawrence make the playoffs.
I'm just taking the division. We've seen Taylor Heineke make the playoffs in the Cowboys division. So what I'm suggesting is the barometer of success for the Cowboys and Dak Prescott can no longer be he gets you to the playoffs. Because with all due respect, Baker done made it, I think, back-to-back.
I completely agree.
So, like, in the NFC, making the playoffs just can no longer be a mark of success. Kind of like Shady's taught me and James has taught me. 1,000-yard season for a running back, that used to be a big deal. For a receiver, that used to be a big deal. Now that the games are more, now it's kind of like, it don't mean all that much. Even Tom Brady said it on a Fox broadcast. It don't mean all that much anymore. In the same way, making the playoffs just does not mean enough. Dak gotta do more, and I just don't know that he can.
I think you're going to look back on this Dak Prescott contract in 5-6 years, maybe when he's retired or when he's playing elsewhere or whatever, and they're going to study this and say, this is the absolute wrong way to build a team. Like paying a guy that gets us to the playoffs, $60 million, and handicapping. I'm all for players. I was a union rep, right? But handicapping your team's success because you're about to be the first team in NFL history, if they get a deal done, with paying 3 players over $30+ million.
This is why when I had these conversations with you guys about we got to rewrite and get it back in order with the quarterback contracts, right? The guys that earn it and deserve it, pay them guys.
Yeah.
The dudes that don't earn it, don't pay them. Because, like, you keep talking about the Cowboys should do this and that with the roster. I think you forgot. A couple years ago, dog, the roster was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And he still didn't get you there.
Yeah.
So now what's going to happen now? You get what I'm saying? Like, I gave you the great roster, top 3 roster for like 2 years straight. You did nothing with them but lose in the playoffs. Now we're here today. I mean, we pay you all this money. Hopefully you can elevate the team. It's a lose-lose for the Cowboys. That's why I said when number 4 has the keys to the offense, to the team, they are not going to be successful.
Yeah. And the only thing with that, though, is because Dak Prescott's not a bad quarterback.
No.
But he's a bad quarterback in the biggest moments.
Yeah, that's
So how did it make you bad then?
That's what I'm saying is like
'Cause he's gotten 36 wins over 3 years.
He's a really good quarterback in the regular season. He knows how to win some games in the regular season. He's not a bad quarterback when you turn the tape on and you watch Dak Prescott. But in the biggest moments, Dak Prescott doesn't show up. So in my humble opinion, you could build a roster and put a lot of great players around an average quarterback, and in those moments, we need you to deliver.
Yeah.
Jay, that's what you're saying. That, like, for example, so I guess out of their whole crew, I feel like I got the best relations with, like, hanging out with the players that's playing now, right? Talk to them a certain way, you know, off the script, take the mics off, we was talking to them. And when I bring, and I ain't gonna say no name, when I bring up Dak Prescott to his teammates, right? They say, man, you be too hard on him. And we start talking. I say, what about the playoffs? They start stuttering. Well, because it's 2 different people.
Well, we'll all start stuttering.
Now, hold up. Now, listen, I told you my dad said be positive. So what I'm saying is, Dak Prescott, yes, he plays well in the regular season, but then playoff Dak shows up, and then you know what happens.
Well, playoff. Also, Slay's a big deal. One,
Gigantic?
yeah.
You see that seal on his chest. Don't play my
big,
boy.
Not even like big, like gigantic.
I think it's a gigantic deal for a couple reasons. One, I would suggest I'm a historian of the Eagles' defense. Yeah. One, I was a part of it. I don't know if anybody else on national television can say that, but I just know the Eagles' defense because before I was a part of the Eagles' defense, I loved the Eagles' defense, dating back to the Ryan eras. The Eagles' most consistently inconsistent position has been cornerback. Back before they overpaid Nnamdi Asomugha.
Nnamdi.
Then Nnamdi out the door.
Like
and then we was trying to figure out cornerbacks then.
Asante
and then
left.
Asante's gone by then. Asante's long gone. Sure, but Asante's long gone. Then you overpay Nnamdi. And shout out to Nnamdi, but that didn't work out. Then you're in cornerback confusion and purgatory. Then we acquire Kerry Williams on the heels of Kerry Williams winning a Super Bowl with the Baltimore Ravens in 2012. Kerry Williams was solid, but the opposite corner, Bradley Fletcher, couldn't really figure that out. Then the Eagles overpay Byron Maxwell, if you remember Byron Maxwell, formerly of the Legion of Boom. Byron Maxwell, he underperforms.
Yeah,
then
Maxwell.
the Eagles try to figure things out with the Green Goblin, the man known as Jalen Mills, and shout out Ronald Darby. They started the year the Eagles win the Super Bowl, but obviously they did not stay in Philadelphia for a long time. Then finally you get a person named Darius Slay.
Locked down.
And he stabilizes the most consistently inconsistent position on the Eagles defense over the last 2 decades at cornerback. All pro, multiple Pro Bowls, etc. And now when you lose Darius Slay, here's why it's a big deal. Because now you might end up losing 2 starters on defense. Because if you lose Slay, that's 1 starter at cornerback. If you take Cooper DeJean and move him from nickel to cornerback, now you lost your starting nickel. And please keep in mind, nickel and corner are 2 completely different positions that require 2 completely different skill sets.
Can Cooper play corner?
Maybe.
Okay.
I can't say yes right now because when you play corner,
Leave him where you at, man.
that part.
I don't know if you put him in
That
corner.
part.
Right?
And I agree with everybody. Leave DeJean where he's at because if you move your nickel to corner, now you're seeing Jamar Chase. Now you're seeing Justin Jefferson. Now you're seeing Mike Evans. Now you're seeing CeeDee Lamb. At nickel, you see Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah, he legit.
Slot merchant.
But that's it. Notice I said one name. Like, you see Amon-Ra. At outside corner, you see dog. Leave Cooper where he's at. When you lose Slay, you lose a starting corner, and now you might lose a starting nickel on a defense that was the most stable it's been in years. So the reason I suggest losing Slay is such a big deal, not just because he's a captain, not just because he's a leader, but because he stabilized the most unstable position over the last 2 decades. I won't take it for granted.
Who was, because you're the lone defender, and better be honest here, who was the best corner for the Philadelphia Eagles last year? The Rook.
Best is Quinyon.
Quinyon.
Yeah. Most important, I would say, is Slay. But best is
We didn't say most important.
Yes,
I want to
best.
say just pure film, right? And I would agree Quinyon has played well. What has Howie done? Howie's drafted well. No, look, you're acting like
because
overall skill-wise, overall play. I mean, all these stats point to Quinyon and just my eye test. Like, because he's younger, he's very smart, plays well in Vic Fangio's defense. I think that you are completely right, and I love the history of the game because I played with the Green Goblin, Jalen Mills. I played with some of these guys. It was like, man, taking me back in time. But if you look at Vic Fangio's defense, Vic Fangio plays a too-high shell defense quite a bit. I would go as far as saying that it's not the most important part of that defense, regardless of the player. Like I'd say corner, you can sometimes hide the corner. And quite honestly, you can definitely hide the field corner, which a lot of times Slay was playing. Now, physically, I don't think it's that big of a loss because he lost some steps, he gave up some touches, which is, look, he's 34. Dude's been playing forever. I played against him when I actually played a game against the Lions in Chicago, and I was like, man, I got to stay away from this guy. Like, I actually played on Thanksgiving, and the game plan was like, don't throw it to Darius Slay's side because he's that dude. I think they're going to lose more on the leadership side, like the mental aspect side, because I do think, we've had him here on the show, a friend of the show, he is one of those guys that gets the Eagles defense going, not only from a classroom perspective, right? And Quinyon, we've talked to Quinyon. Quinyon said Slay was like a guy that was a leader in the locker room, right? And you might lose Zach Bond in free agency because, quite honestly, I think they're going to get outbid. So you lose Zach Bond possibly, and you're going to lose Darius Slay. It's a very young Eagles defensive core. So from that perspective, I do think it's important. But overall, physically and playing the game, will they have troubles in the all 22 versions of film come next season? No, I don't think so.
Yeah, well, number one, I think it is going to be a big loss. And I'm starting with the locker room. I think it's going to be a big loss in the locker room, right? You got some young DBs out there on the Philadelphia Eagles defense, and I think Darius Slay was the leader of that room, right? To get them boys to understand, hey, man, in these moments, this is what you got to be. This is how you got to prepare. This is how you got to watch film. You're gonna miss them from that standpoint. But not only that, we're in a passing league, fellas.
Correct.
This is a passing league, right? It ain't, every team ain't got Saquon. All right? It's a passing league. So you're losing a big-time cornerback in Darius Slay, and it's not because he can't play. It's because of the money that he was about to make. That's the only reason why he's not on that roster, because Darius Slay can still play this game at a high level. I think this is going to be a big blow because I don't know who you getting in there to come in there to replace Darius Slay in the locker room and on the field right now, because you're going to, if you're releasing him, you're not bringing in a $30 million corner.
No.
So you're trying to get another corner for cheap. And then once that corner starts getting cooked, they're going to be like, we got to start scrambling around the defense and all that type stuff, because people are going to catch passes. You brought up Darius Slay. People are going to catch passes. It's going to happen. I think this is going to be a big loss for that defense. It's hard to find dudes that can lock down and cover. It's hard to find dudes that can do both, play zone and man. It is hard to find corners that can do that. That's why Darius Slay been doing it at a high level for so long. I think it's going to be a big blow in that locker room and on that football field.
Yeah, I think it's a loss. I don't know how big it is, just because, I mean, Howie's going to do a great job of drafting somebody.
And Howie we trust.
Right? I think if you look at last year, I was like, man, this year coming out, we going to have some trouble in the back end, in the secondary. What does Howie do? He drafts 2 phenomenal rookies, right? And then what about the safeties, right? Safeties is pretty good. I do think that Slay's, the leadership, being a veteran, that's going to matter tremendously. But he knows this game. He knows this league, right? And I think he probably prepared for this. We all been there when we got older, and they didn't want to pay us a certain amount of money. So, you know, we had to do best for our family and move on. But I will say this, though. I think this Slay, it's energy. You know, you talk about a guy that's super vocal, talk about a guy that loves, is passionate about the game. I think those are the things that we might miss in Darius Slay. Because as far as just the defense part of it, I mean, we play a safe defense, right?
Bunch too
and
high.
I think another thing is we're going to get another pass rusher. So maybe you might lose a Darius Slay in the back end, but then we might bring a guy like
If you get Myles Garrett.
or even Khalil Mack. Yeah. We're going to get somebody with a big name that rushes that pass. I think it kind of balance everything out. But I'm going to miss Slay.
Yeah.
That's my dog, though, man.
For real. Well, what up, YouTube family? Welcome to the facility. Thanks for watching, and you better be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to get more highlights from the show and all of our exclusive content.